stick around because I'm going to show you how to make this adorable mini tote bag with just some scraps and a little bit of fusible interfacing. I recently posted a picture on my Instagram with a bunch of these little bags that I made for an upcoming craft show. These are so easy to make, so much fun, and it's sort of just a really quirky little bag that you can make for all kinds of things. So I decided to go ahead and do a quick tutorial for you. It is very easy to do. You don't need a lot of fabric. I'm going to tell you everything that you need. These are all scraps from various projects. The bag measures, I'm going to say, measures about 8 inches by maybe 4 inches high. So it's a nice little bag. Be great for Christmas, put a little Christmas gift in it, be great for a birthday gift, anniversary, you know, anything like that. It's just a really cute little thing. Maybe for a little kid, they have a little bag they can carry around. All kinds of colors. I made all kinds of different colors. I have so many scraps left over from various projects. Here's a yellow one. You can see they're just lots of fun to do, really quirky. All right, here's one more look at the bag we're going to be making today. We're making it in different colors. These are so much fun to make. I'm using all batiks. I have lots of batik scraps. These are great scrap busters, like I said at the beginning of the video. But let me tell you now what we're going to need. You're going to need a ruler, a square ruler like this, good pair of scissors, a marking tool. I'm just going to use, I would not normally not use a felt tip pen, but for video purposes I'm going to, so you can see it. And then fabric, and this is always the fun part. The first thing you need are 2 rectangles for the outer part, and in this case it's this darker blue. For the outer part you need 2 rectangles cut 9 inches by 7 inches. Okay, and you need 2 pieces. For the lining, which in this case is the lighter blue inside, 2 more pieces cut 9 inches by 7 inches with some fuzz on it. I'll get that off. And lastly, I use some fusible fleece interfacing that's fusible on one side, and I'll show you what I do. It has a little, just a slight bit of stiffness, which I like. It helps this bag stand up nicely. You do not, this is optional, you don't need to use that. You could probably use batting too, but it might be a little bit softer. I've never tried it with batting, so I like just this extra little bit of stability it gives the whole project. So you need that, that's for the bag. And then lastly, for the adorable little handles, you need 2 strips that are cut, let me move this out of the way. You need 2 strips that are cut 2.5 inches by 6 inches. So 2.5 inches wide by 6 inches long. And I'll show you how to prep those too. So let's get started with this bag. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to put on, adhere that fusible interface, the fleece, fusible fleece, to the wrong side of the fabric that's going to be on the outside of your bag. Now I'm using batik, so it's a lot easier to choose the wrong side. It really is. It's hard to tell what the wrong side is on most batiks. But what I'm going to do is follow the manufacturer's instructions, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere that. In this case, I put it on, I put a warm iron on it, and that'll fuse it really nicely. And you do that on both pieces, on the back side of both pieces. Again, following the manufacturer's instructions. All right, those are nicely pressed down. They look good. This is the outside of my bag, and you can see this is attached on, so we're ready to go. I forgot to mention, I use for my product, I use Pilon 987F. That seems to work best for me, but again, there are a lot of good products out there. But for this bag, that's what I'm using for that fusible fleece. So the next thing we're going to do is make the handles. Alright, so to make the handles, what you're going to do is you have a nice warm iron, hot iron. You're going to take your fabric. It's hard to see on the batik, but this is going to be the wrong side of your fabric, and you're going to fold it over so the wrong sides are touching. Let me move my fingers out of the way, and you're just going to press that. Give it a nice good press. Let it cool, okay? And then you're going to open it. Now you see you have that nice crisp line. That's going to be your center line. And then you're going to fold one side over until it touches that center pressed line. And then I'm going to press again. Watch your fingers. It's very hot. And I just hold it for a second. let it cool, and then repeat and do that on the other side, where you're going to fold over to the center, just all the way down for a couple seconds, like so. And then you're going to fold it again in half on that line where it was, you know, the original pressed line. And you're going to give it a nice good press. I hold it for a couple seconds. There you go. And then I'll show you what we do next, but you're going to do that both times because you want 2 little straps on this. All right, so here they are. Here are those 2 straps that are pressed. The fun part is I use the same fabric, this fabric. I meant to mention that. This is called Jelly Bean by Island Batik. Is it not gorgeous? They have this available all the time. So you can see I pulled out a lot of yellow in this strap and then the pinks in the other one. So the next thing you're going to want to do is just 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Just sew a line, just easy top stitching down both sides. Down this side and down this side of the strap on both of them, and that's just to secure it so they don't open up, and I will do that right now. All right, so there's my 2 straps for each side of the bag. Now I'm going to move this, I'm going to just set those aside, and then we're going to do a little bit of trimming, and then we're going to sew. I'm telling you, this bag comes together in no time. I love it. For essence of time, you do not have to do it this way, but this is how I like to do it. I'm going to go ahead and do these all at once. This is a very forgiving bag too, which I like because I'm not truly a bag maker. So I line all 4 of the 2 outer pieces that have the fusible interfacing on them, and then the 2 lining pieces. And I'm just going to line these all up together right on top of each other. Try to make sure everything's even. Okay, like so. And this is where you want to trim out. You're going to trim 2 little edges out on the corners here. So for this size, I have, basically I'm going to cut out a 2-inch square. So I line up my square ruler, and I put my 2-inch mark at the corner here, line it up with the bottom and the left. Hopefully you can see that okay. Now you can use a regular marking, a water-soluble marking tool, which actually might show up. Maybe I'll do that instead of the felt tip. I would not recommend a felt tip. So basically I'm going to just mark out, plot out a 2-inch square on this side. Well, I was making some darker ones earlier, which is why I use the felt tip, because it's hard to see this ink. So there you can see that square, and then I'm going to do it on the opposite side. We're doing it on the long edge. This is the longer edge. This is the 9-inch edge. And I'm going to mark another 2-inch square. Very easy. There we go. So I can see that. You might not be able to see that one as easily because it's blue with the blue pen. And then what I'm going to do is take a nice pair of sharp scissors. Now remember, we have all these layers together. You can pin these together if you prefer. It's up to you. And I am just going to cut out. I have a nice good pair of scissors. My mother-in-law gave me once years ago. I love these scissors. Doesn't matter if you go a little bit beyond that line. And then just cut out this on the line. You can also use your rotary cutter. And you just want to cut out on that line you drew. There's one corner. And then I'm going to cut out this other corner. I do try to double check before I start the other one to make sure everything's lined up okay, and it is. Again, this is very unforgiving. I'm sorry, very, very forgiving. Wrong words to say there. I'm just going to move this around. And there's a couple little threads. We're just going to trim those. All right. So there we go. This is what we're doing. So I cut it out all at once. I might trim that up just a little bit, make it a little bit neater. Sort of went a little wonky on that side. Okay, I can't, there we go. Okay, so first things first, we're going to set the lining aside, and we are going to sew the two outside pieces together first. So I'm going to put them right sides together, like so and like so, line them up, and I use about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You are going to sew along the right, along the left, and along the bottom. Just going to stitch a 1/2 inch seam allowance, this, and this. Very easy to do. All right, so here we go. You can see I've sewn those 3 sides, and now we're going to box these corners in. So we're going to start with this one. Get your fingers in there, sort of push it together. That's what's nice. This fusible webbing is nice and lightweight, so you can just sort of manipulate this really well. And you are going to, I do it with the seams open like that, because that reduces some of the bulk, and then the seams open on this side. If I can, there we go. It's kind of tricky. Well, if I can do it, there we go. I like to line up those seams right here. I just double check, and then I'm going to get my pins. I will pin both of those seams, you know, the extra seam there. I will pin those down like so. And like so. You might need to manipulate it a little bit. Just going to make sure, yep, it's, no, I caught it on the back. So you definitely want to check yourself. Okay, there we go, that's better. And then you're going to take it over to your machine, and this line that you formed when you pin those together, you want to just manipulate a little bit so it's a nice straight line. Just going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance down here too. All right, so there is that side, nice and flat on both sides. No, I didn't catch it, I thought I did. And then we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. And then again, straighten it out, and then sew 1/2 inch seam allowance down there. All right, so here is that. It's all done. Got the great boxed corners. So I'm going to put that aside for a second, and we're going to do the lining. All right, so next thing is the lining. We're going to do basically the same thing except for one huge difference, which is really important. So you're going to sew all the way down this side like we did with the other. And this is, I'm sorry, this is the 2 pieces of lining, right sides facing and lined up together. On this side, you're going to sew a little bit down, maybe 1 inch down and 1 inch from the bottom. And you're going to leave a gap here because that's where you're going to turn this bag right sides out. You definitely want to back stitch here and here so that when you're turning this inside out, it doesn't come apart. It's pretty easy to come apart. This bag, there's a lot of manipulation when you're turning it right sides out. So, and you'll see that in a few minutes, but don't forget to leave that gap there and back stitch at those ends. All right, so here's that lining sewn, and let me just show you really quickly. And there's the hole that I made so I can turn everything inside out. It's not very big. You can make it bigger if you need to. You will see it is a little tricky to turn this inside out, but it's not that bad. So with this, you're going to do the same thing. We're going to box those corners of the lining. Very easy. You're just going to pull this corner together. It's actually easier on this than it is on the one with the fusible lining interfacing, excuse me, fusible fleece, because it's not so thick. Let me just get my nail in there so I can split this in half. There's not as much bulk on these seams, which is nice. It is fiddly. So there we go. And I'm matching up that seam. I'm just going to pin. And pin. Let me just flip that over. There we go. Okay. And then again, 1/2 inch seam allowance down that one, and we're going to repeat it on the other side. Alright, so here's the lining with the boxed corners. Very fun, very cute. And now we're ready to start assembling this bag a little bit more. So we're going to pull this back over. This was the outside of the bag. And we are going to flip this over, right sides out, I should say. Punch out those corners. Don't punch them out. Just push them out. I don't mean to punch them out. Well, I guess unless you're in a bad mood or something. So now you have, see how nice it stands? And how you have the nice boxed corners. Okay. Now you're going to put this into, don't flip this one insides out. You're going to leave this one inside out. Yeah, you'll see what happens. But anyways, it's like magic. You're going to put this into the lining. So you have right sides facing. And then push it in. It'll all come together. And then I'm going to match up the seams of the lining with the seams of the outer part of the bag, the tote, the mini tote. And again, I opened up those seams because it'd be a lot less bulk when you're flipping stuff inside out. If I could actually do it. There we go. Might help to press those open just for time. You can do that if you want. I can be a lazy sewer, so I didn't even bother to take it. You could press them open, you probably should, but I'm notoriously bad about that. So again, you're going to line those up, the seam and then the top of the edge, because that's going to be the top of your bag, and then you're going to go over to the other side and do the same thing. Now you have your bag pinned on, I put it on both sides like that. Okay, and now you're ready. Now we're gonna put the handles in. Okay, so you're gonna grab one of your handles, and I may actually zoom the camera out just a little bit so you can see this better. Although you might be able to see it fine here. Okay, we're gonna try it this way. Basically, you want the handle to go inside between the lining and the outer part of the bag. You can see that. And I'm going to slide it down the one end. And I just sort of eyeball it. I'm just going to eyeball it from here. I use my seam as a gauge, and I'm just going to eyeball it over to how much I want. And then for this one, you can pin it or use clips. I'm actually going to pull my clips out. I forgot to do that. And then you're going to bring it around, making sure it doesn't get twisted. See, it's going to form like a U inside the bag. Hopefully you can see that. Like that. Let me move that back. There we go. And you're going to pin it on this side. Now, this may not be the final pin, because this is when you want to eyeball it and figure out. So then I pull back the lining to the top, and I pull this taut, and then I just kind of check. I hope this makes sense. I didn't really measure it, but I go from one pin to the other and see, how far it is from here to here. You can measure it. I have a hunch this one's a little bit further out than this one, so we can fix that. Let me get my ruler so I can just measure pin to pin. Just sometimes it's easy to do that. Again, it goes quickly if you're just going to eyeball it. So I'm going to measure from My seam to the pin is about 3 inches. And then I bet you this one's shorter is my hunch. So yes, it is. It's about 2.5 inches. So that's, you can just, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this longer one over a little bit. So you just play with it a little bit till you're happy. Pin it in place. Double check it. Make sure everything, I line these up on the edge. And that to me looks better. So I'm going to leave that like that. And I actually like to use these handy dandy wonder clips for this part. These things are great. They really are a wonder, those clips. And they're so pretty with the different colors. So I'm just going to pin that, or excuse me, clip that. Like so. And then we're going to flip it over and do the same thing, add the other strap onto this side. Remember, you're doing it on the inside because when you turn this right sides out. And then what I'm going to do is I sort of use the back one as my guide for the front one. If that made sense. Basically, I'm going to look at the one behind it and sort of line it up like that so that they're even. And now I'm happy with it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take it over to your sewing machine and go ahead and sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance again around the entire outside of the bag. So you're, making like a circle. Alright, so I've sewn around the edge, the top edge, all the way around, making sure I didn't catch any of the strap. You can kind of see the strap. You probably don't see it on the camera, but I can feel it. One time I was making one of these and I had the strap twisted and it got all sewn up into the seam. So yeah, just watch out for that. Now comes the fun part. We're going to turn this inside, right sides out. That's why, and you're going to notice there's a lot of manipulation, so you're just going to pull that outer piece out. You got to be a lot of manipulation. You do have to be firm, but you also have to be careful with that seam. I have torn them pulled them apart in the past. You just, because we're going to close that anyway, so it's not that big a deal. Okay, so now you still have that part of the lining open. You definitely want to sew that closed. Now, because it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance, the edges automatically flip in, which is really nice, so I don't have to worry about it. So I'm just going to pull that out and finger press it. I might actually take it over and press it really quickly. But it's folded naturally for you, so you don't have to worry about it. The edges are under, and you're just going to do like 1/8 of an inch, just a very scant stitch along here to close that hole up. So I'm going to do that really quickly, and then I'll show you what we do next to finish this bag. All right, now you may not be, I double check on the back, but there, I just did a very, very scant. It's probably hard with the light shining on it. Hopefully you can see it. I'll try to fix that when I'm editing the video. Trim off any threads. You know, we always have threads. I went to dinner with my husband last night and I noticed my shirt had threads all over it. So now we're going to take it over. I'm going to press this really nicely and I'm going to line up, sort of roll this over the top edge because I don't want to necessarily want to see the lining. I'm going to roll this over to the inside when I'm pressing, if that makes sense, so that you don't see that. Now you could see the lining if you want, because the last thing we're going to do with this bag is stitch another 1/8 inch, just sort of a top stitching all around the top. That helps hold the lining in, and I think just sort of finishes the bag nicely. But right now I'm going to go press this really nicely. All right, so here's my little tote bag. Isn't that cute? Now the last thing I'm going to do again is I'm going to just stitch around the whole outer edge on the outside. Nice stitching, just a very scant, like 1/8 of an inch in. And that helps tack down that binding, or the lining, so it doesn't pop out. I mean, it still may pop out because it's not, sewn on the bottom or anything. But I'm going to do that real quick, and then you'll see the whole thing. So here it is one more time. What do you think of our little mini tote bag, mini fabric bag, whatever you want to call it, basket? You could even, it's big enough. It's not real small. It's a nice little size. Be great for gifts. I can imagine this in like holiday colors with like a gift certificate and some candy, or just as maybe a birthday gift. You could throw some stuff in there, some money or a little bling. That's always fun. But this is it. These are my mini fabric, or my mini tote bags, and I hope you give them a try. They can also be fabric baskets. I might actually put a couple notions in here, make a couple different colors and put them on the shelf. But they're just lots of fun to make, and they're really cute, and they come together in no time. And I don't know about you, but I have a ton of scraps. So I am always looking for projects to use them up, and this is a good one for pieces that might be a little bit bigger. Here it is in blue. I made all kinds of different colors. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. I always love new subscribers, and I really do appreciate it. I do all kinds of free patterns, tutorials, tips, tricks, that kind of thing. I have a lot of fun over here. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have a group called Working Our Scraps Off, which does precisely that, works lots of scrap projects off, and everybody shows their goodies that they make, and I love to share projects over there too, free tutorials, that kind of thing. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.